So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shyam Sundar, Krishna, Balaram, Bal Gopal, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadramani, Shingadev Bhagwan, Gaunitai, Tulsimani Shila, Haridas Thakur, Guru Parampara, Shila Prabhupada, Guru Manjim, assembled devotees. So, we've moved into Canto number 3, and just a quick overview of the previous 2 cantos. The sages of Nimansharanya ask questions of Sutta Swami, which he answers. Sutta gives details of 22 incarnations, and Krishna is stated to be the source of all avatars. Then Narad guides Vyasadeva to glorify Krishna and gives an account of his own life. The Lord saves Parikshit, and Queen Kunti offers wonderful prayers. Bhishma instructs Yudhishthir and leaves his body in the presence of Krishna. Yudhishthir's devotional service is described, after which Krishna returns to Dwarka, where he is so respectful to his elders. Parikshit's astrological predictions about his qualities make Yudhishthir happy. Vidur returns to Hastinapur and preaches to Dhritarashtra, and who leaves home and achieves perfection. Yudhishthir sees bad omens, and Arjun returns from Dwarka, dejected, defeated, and informs the king of Lord Krishna's departure for the spiritual world. Yudhishthir also decides to go back to Godhead, as do his brothers and wives. Kali breaks 3 legs of Dharma, the bull, and earth, represented by the cow, was sad that Krishna has left the planet. Parikshit threatens Kali, who surrenders and is allowed to stay in certain places, including gold. Parikshit insults Samika Rishi, and his son curses Parikshit to die in 7 days. Parikshit gives up all attachments and heads for the Ganga, where Sukadev comes to instruct. Then the second canto, brief overview. He congratulates Parikshit and begins to answer, congratulates him for leaving all his worldly attachments and coming to the banks of the Ganga. And he begins to answer his glorious question. His question was, what does one do at the time of death? The Virat Rup is described 3 times in this canto for various purposes. Detachment is advised in the world of names. How the yogi leaves the body is also explained. By association of the devotees, one can attain Godhead, and mundane talks reduces lifespan. Parikshit asks about creation, and Sukadev relates the conversation between Brahma and Narad. Narad wonders why Brahma did austerities. Is there someone more powerful? Brahma explains the supreme possession of Narayan, the primary creator, and how the Lord empowered him after Brahma performed austerities, tapa. Brahma explains the process of creation. Karanadakshina Vishnu breathes out, and billions of universes come out of the pores of his body. Into each universe he further expands as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, from whose navel sprouts the lotus upon which Brahma is born. Brahma describes in brief the avatars. Parikshit asks 30 questions to Sukadeva Goswami, who starts describing Lord Brahma's tapasya, which pleased the Lord, who spoke the Chatusloki to him. The Lord asked Brahma to ask for a benediction, and Brahma asked for the Lord to bless him to create the universe and not become proud. 10 topics of the Bhagavatam are stated, and Shonakrishi asks about Vidhur inquiries from Maitreya. Okay, so conversations. Basically, now we are in the 3rd canto. We're going to enter the conversation between Vidur and Uddhav. And this is stated by Sukadeva Goswami. Questions by Vidur. Glorifying the Pandavas' house as being a holy dham, since Sri Krishna would often come there to visit them, Sukadeva Goswami explains that Vidur left the prosperous kingdom and entered the forest, where he met Maitreya Rishi. Parikshit Maharaj asks Sukadeva Goswami to describe Vidur's discussion. with Maitreya Rishi. Sukadeva Goswami began by explaining circumstances that led to Vidur to leave. Sukadeva Goswami then narrates the key intrigues of the blind king, Dhritarashtra, against the Pandavas' party, the burning of the Pandavas' holiday home, insults to Draupadi, and cheating in the gambling match. Up to the time when Vidur, who was giving valuable advice to the king to return the share to the Pandavas, is being insulted by Duryodhana and subsequently quitting his brother's palace. Vidur takes advantage of his banishment to go on pilgrimage to many holy places like Ayodhya, Dwarka, Mathura, and he seeks out the association of great devotees. While traveling, he learns of the destruction of the Kuru dynasty, and he eventually reaches the banks of the Yamuna, where he happens to meet Uddhav, the great devotee of Lord Krishna, whom he embraces with great affection. This is amazing. Upon meeting with Uddhav, Vidur asks for details of the Yadu dynasty, especially Vasudev Pradyumna, the commander-in-chief of the Yadus, who was Cupid in a former life, Ugrasen, the king of the Satvats, Vishnis, Bhojas, and Dasharhas, Samba, Yudhana, Akrur, Aniruddha, and others, such as Hridika, Charudeshna, Gada, and the son of Satyabhama. And that must be Samba. Then he asks about the welfare of the Pandavas, Mother Kunti's Pratha, Kuntima still living. She lived only for the sake of her fatherless children. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to live without King Pandu, who was the greatest commander. Then Vidur asks about Krishna's greatness, his transcendental purpose. He states the appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could he serve by coming to earth? Vidur asks Uddhav to chant Krishna's glories by describing his pastimes. So then chapter 2, Remembrance of Krishna. Hearing Vidur's request, Uddhav goes into deep ecstasy, remembering his childhood worshipped Lord Sri Krishna. He would worship Lord Krishna. Having served his Lord from his very childhood, Uddhav shed tears in deep separation. At 5 years old, he would be so absorbed in his service to Krishna that when called for breakfast by his mother, he would not come. His devotion did not slacken in old age. The acharyas mentioned that Uddhav was quiet for one muhurta, 48 minutes, due to ecstasy. Vidur could see his love for the Lord. Uddhav laments the setting of Krishna's sun and how the Yadus were now swallowed in darkness. Yet even when Krishna was present, his beauty and transcendence were not understood by everyone, not even his own family members. Although the Yadus were highly learned and expert in psychic study, they could understand the Lord only partially as Paramatma and not as Bhagavan. That's quite interesting. So even the Yadus didn't have the full understanding of the Lord. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifests his eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who were unable to see him as he is, due to not executing required penance. So penance is needed in order to understand the Lord. Uddhav continued, Krishna's pastimes are wonderful for everyone, even for those proud of their own opulence, including Lord Vishnu, who becomes astounded. So even Lord Vishnu becomes astounded by Krishna's pastimes. This is the glory of Krishna. After seeing the beautiful bodily features of Lord Krishna, the demigods understand that his beauty surpasses the dexterity of Brahma in creating beautiful objects. Gopis were anguished when Krishna left them. His pastimes are bewildering. So, what are these bewildering pastimes? He fled to Vrindavan. He fled Vrindavan out of fear of Kamsa. He fled to Vrindavan. This is when he was taken by Vasudev to Gokul. He begged forgiveness from his parents. He's the Supreme Lord. He doesn't need to beg forgiveness, but he did. His parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, that he could not serve them. He humbly went before King Ugrasen to submit himself. You are the king, I am your servant. Shishupal hated him, but he achieved yogic success. He accepted Putna as his mother, or nurse at least. He gave liberation to all those who fought against him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The demons who are inimical to the Lord appear to be more than the devotees. So these are wonderful pastimes described in this part of the chapter. After Brahma's prayers, Krishna descended to earth, born in the prison of Kams. After taken by his father to Nand Maharaj's home, Krishna lived in Vrindavan for 11 years like a covered flame, roaming the pastures with his friends and cows, killing demons for fun, like a child playing with dolls, teaching the king of heaven, Indra, a lesson by worshipping cows and Govardhan, driving Kalia out of the Yamuna and playing his flute to attract the gopis for his last Leela pastimes. So this is phenomenal chapter 2 of Canto number 3, where Uddhav is describing the wonderful pastimes of Krishna, inconceivable pastimes. Those pastimes outside of Vrindavan. To give happiness to their parents, Krishna and Balaram went to Mathura and defeated Kams. They finished their education from Sandipani Muni and brought back Sandimuni's son from Yamlok. Krishna married many beautiful princesses and sired a great dynasty by begetting 10 children to each wife. This is the Yadu dynasty. Through his own power and that of his devotees, Krishna removed the earth's burden of so many belligerent Kshatriyas. After the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, the Lord said, the abatement of earth's great burden, the 18 Akshauhinis have now been defeated with the help of Drona, Bhishma, Arjun, and Bhim. But what is this? There is still the great strength of the Yadu dynasty, born of myself, which may be a more unbearable burden. When they quarrel amongst themselves, this is Krishna's thinking, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise, it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. After predicting his own family's ultimate disappearance, Krishna establishes Yudhishthira's pious rule. He also protects Parikshit, the future heir to the throne. After inducing Yudhishthira to perform 3 host sacrifices, Yudhishthira rules the world as advised by Krishna with the help of his brothers. After this, the Lord returned to Dwaka. The pristine, transcendental, sweet nature of Lord Krishna's pastimes, household pastimes, can only be understood by his devotees. In Dwaka, Lord Krishna enjoyed with his wives in his spiritual body, expressing himself with nectarian words, flawless character, and a sweetly smiling face of radiance. Simultaneously, Krishna followed the Vedic and social customs and was situated in detachment, vairagya, and Sankhya knowledge, jnana. He engaged in household life for many years, exhibiting detachment. Everyone is under the control of supernatural forces, and unless he is a devotee, he cannot put faith in the Lord's transcendental sense activities. So we just read, in fact, and sang this bhajan, which shows the Lord's very intimate pastimes with his closest devotees. And if we not have any faith in the Supreme Lord, it'd be very hard to understand these pastimes. Once, after teasing great sages, the Yadu princes were cursed and produced an iron mace, which would be the cause of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. After a few months passed, the Yadus, who were incarnations of the demigods, went to Prabhashetra, where they gave cows to the Brahmins in royal charity. The Brahmins were not only given well-fed cows in charity, but also gold coins, bedding, clothing, animal skin seats, blankets, horses, elephants, girls, sufficient land for maintenance. Chapter 4. Vidur approaches Maitri Rishi. Thereafter, a liquid-fueled quarrel began amongst the Yadus, which caused their mutual destruction. Nobody could defeat the Yadus. They were Krishna's family. Only they themselves could finish their time in earth. All their minds became unbalanced due to intoxication, and destruction took place. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, after foreseeing the end of his family by his internal potency, went to the bank of the river Saraswati, sipped water, and sat down under a tree. Uddhava and Maitreya follows Krishna. Not being able to tolerate separation from Krishna, Uddhava followed him to Prabhash instead of going to Badrikaksham as advised by the Lord, where he also saw Maitreya. Lord Krishna in his four-handed form was sitting with his right foot on his thigh against a banyan tree, alone and deeply thinking, and yet cheerful. The Lord is always Satchid Ananda, very happy. With Maitreya Rishi present, Krishna blesses Uddhav, telling him that after his birth, he will attain, or after his death, he will attain Vaikuntha, and his being with the Lord at that time is a great boon to him. This stunned Uddhav, who glorified Krishna, stating that even learned sages cannot understand the Lord. Uddhav asked Krishna to enlighten him with knowledge of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which the Lord does. And we will see that instruction in detail in the 11th canto. Much aggrieved in separation from Krishna, and just to mitigate this, Uddhav said to Vidur that he was now proceeding to Badrikaksham in the Himalayas for association, as he had been instructed by Krishna. There in Badrikaksham, the personality of Godhead, in his incarnation as the sages Nara and Narayan, has been undergoing great penance since time immemorial for the welfare of all living entities. Vidur and Uddhav discuss topics about Krishna, but in response to Vidur's further inquiries, Uddhav advised him to take direction from Maitri Rishi. So Maitri Rishi was also with Krishna at the time when Krishna left. Parikshit asks why only Uddhav remained in the world after the Yadus and Lord Krishna's departure. Sukadeva answered that Krishna considered Uddhav as the only one who can directly be entrusted with knowledge about him after his departure. After Vidur hears from Uddhav about the appearance and disappearance of Krishna, he feels overwhelmed by Krishna's remembrance of him before he left the world. So Krishna remembered Vidur before he left this world. And Vidur was amazed. He then began to cry loudly, overwhelmed by the ecstasy of love. After passing a few days on the banks of the river Yamuna, Vidur, the self-realized soul, reached the bank of the Ganga, where the great sage Maitreya was situated. So we'll finish there and continue tomorrow. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, let's stop there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Vidhur ki jai. Oh, yes, Priyanjali, what's your question?
Why did Krishna remember Vidur when he was leaving this world?
Yes, a very good question. It's because he, Vidur, was such a humble devotee, such a humble soul. Actually, Vidur is incarnation of Yamraj. But he was extremely knowledgeable. He had so much knowledge, and he was so devotional towards Krishna. And Krishna was remembering him because of those qualities, great devotion and very humble. And because of the pastimes of the Mahabharat war, and Vidur was not present at that time, he had gone on different pilgrimage. So Krishna was really very pleased with Vidur, and so he remembered him at that time. And he also knew that Vidur will meet Uddhav, and he wanted Uddhav to let Vidur know that the Lord was remembering him. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji.
To make Vidur very happy. Okay, thank you for that question, Priyanjali. Very, very good. Okay. Anything else?
No,
So,
Prabhuji.
thank you. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Krishna Chandra Bhagwan ki jai, Uddhav ki jai, Vidur ki jai.